Okay, I'll just start. Sorry, I'm sharing. Are you able to see my screen? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Sorry. Start with the prayer. Om Gananantva Ganapatigam Kavame Kavim Kavinam Upamasravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanasparanas Svanman Udibisi Sadanam. Hey, thank you very much everyone for joining. I will go through some of my learnings in the last 12 months or maybe a little bit less since I have been able to join you all in the Gita study group. And I called it my C.P.U journey, and I mentioned just a minute ago that my good friend Krishna has joined us, and he will see a lot of relevance to this. He and another friend and myself did something a few years ago, and this C.P.U was always a catchword or a catchphrase for us, which basically stands for curiosity and passion to understand. And it's the same curiosity and passion to understand our scriptures that have led me into this beautiful journey with you all over the last several months. So with that said, let me jump right in. I just want to express my gratitude to start with to especially to Swamy Guruparananda. I have not spoken to him directly so far, but I have listened a lot to his lectures on his podcasts, as well as exchanged some emails, which I'll be talking about. Very interesting communication with him. And I consider him my, my spiritual guru. And of course, Guntax, Rajesh, with whom we started this journey with an initial journey into meditation right after our 25th year reunion in 2016. Our Gita study group, of course, all of you on this call and through our weekly discussions, a lot of thinking got me into a lot of thinking, and very grateful for that, and a lot of suggestions and recommendations that I have been able to put into practice somewhat. And definitely my family and my friends, especially my wife and children, who have accepted and also tolerated some of the time I have been spending, obviously, in our Gita group discussions, as well as some of my long walks where I listen to Swamiji's lectures and so on. And my friends, some of whom have joined here today. So the source of my C.P.U, I'll keep calling this C.P.U. The first one here is curiosity, as I've noted here. And since COVID started, and this is where I'll bring in my friend Krishna. So about 5 years ago, we were thinking about how the education system needs to be changed and so forth, and how we understand things, how we apply those things that we understand in our real world scenarios. And we started an education academy for mathematics and science. And and we got some really cool insights when we got into it with the middle school and high school students. And a similar kind of thought occurred to me at the beginning of COVID, which I will explain through a little story here very soon. And of course, with that, a lot of passion came to understand the real world scientifically and logically, which I also ended up discovering through the scriptures. I had a little bit of learning from my early life, but never really understood it deeply enough. And in the last 8 or 9 months, I have been able to gain a lot more. and hopefully I'll explain that real well. And of course, the understanding, uh, I think the curiosity and passion, if those two exist, I have found that at least for myself and a few others, definitely it's a really good way to begin a journey to understanding anything that we embark on. So that's just the starting uh, point for me. And I'll go into each of these components one by one. The first one is curiosity. It began when COVID started. I actually started blogging a little bit, and I went back and looked at my blog. It was between late March through early April. For about 8 to 10 days, I was writing a page or writing a few pages every day and posting them on the blog. Then I was taking a walk one day and I was thinking, I used to, always had these questions, why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the point of what I'm doing? And stealing from one of the presentations Kishore made a few weeks ago to all of us, you know, the answer seems to be all of us, all the roads lead to, I'm doing what I'm doing because I want to get to a state of happiness, or um I want to be in a state of happy. Don't really know what that happy means or what it really does to us, but we are always looking for that elusive something. So that's where it started. And I was taking a long walk one day, um, and I started listening to Hidden Brain by Shankar Vedantam, some podcast that Krishna, who's on our call with us, on this call with us, recommended. And it was all interesting, but it still wasn't getting me there. So I started searching for, about 20 years ago, I started searching for, I picked up a book on the Upanishads. I wanted to understand what was in there, and I read through them, and they really didn't make any sense to me. This was back in the mid 90s. So after that kind of failed experience, I said, okay, this is really not going to work. But that same thing came back. And while I was walking, I searched in the podcast for Upanishads, and guess what? Swamy Guru Parananda's lectures in Tamil showed up. So I just picked up, I visited his website, the website you see on the bottom of the page, Purnalayam, and he recommended an order in which to listen to the Upanishads. He also recommended an order in which to listen to the scriptures themselves, but I conveniently, neglected them, and I went straight into, okay, how do I listen to the Upanishads? Because that's what I had tried 20 years ago. Um, and he says, first listen to the Mundaka Upanishad. So I just switched on the Mundaka Upanishad, and I was walking and listening to this podcast. And lo and behold, I realized that it was all basic reality and basic science. So at the end of that lecture, I quickly gave a call to Guntax, which is Rajesh that you see here with us. Um, and I had been practicing meditation, over the last off and on. I wouldn't say I've been regular over the last 4 or 5 years since Rajesh got us into it at that time. And I told him, hey, this is all very logical and scientific. And Guntak said, okay, welcome. Then actually he suggested that I should join the Gita study group, and that's where it all began for me. So I really, I would like to thank my own curiosity, which led me to listen to that podcast and end up asking that, you know, uh, listening to Guntax's advice. And the other thing that I wanted to mention here was, you can see Isaac Newton here looking at the apple and figuring out this gravitation and all that. So we used to, when we started this Einstein Academy, we used to say that, Isaac Newton did not write down the equations of gravitation and then figured out, oh, I can take this and apply it to a falling apple and other objects and everything else in the universe. What he did was actually he saw something and he became very curious about it. And that's so he worked backwards from there to figure out, and he invented a whole system of new mathematics and all that, and he figured out the equations of gravitation. So he went backwards, right? So it was the same kind of aha moment for me, uh, that when I listened to Swamiji's lecture, that he was presenting reality as it was and then working backwards, explaining why everything was the way it was and what was the source of everything. That put me, that gave me kind of an indication, okay, this is probably what I have been curious about all the time, to understand what is in our scriptures, and connecting the dots, right from that beginning, the first time that I listened to Swamiji's podcast. Okay, so where did I go from here? So I became curious. Guntak suggested that I join the Gita study group, which I have been doing since that time. And then I come to the passion part of the journey. Um, as soon as I realized that as soon as I got into it and I came into interacting with you all, a whole bunch of questions popped up in my mind. I just show it as y to the power of 1,000 plus. A lot of why questions, and and of course we all have real world problems, uh, and we are looking for real solutions or practical solutions. Um, some of the things that I have been observing over the last year is, how do we spiritualize every day? The Upanishads, scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, everything is about basic human psychology. How do we internalize things that we observe and experience, and how do we respond to them? And then, of course, what I find most important out of this whole thing is, realize the power of observation and meditating upon them, and reflecting back upon things. um, and I keep coming back to the real fire that has kept burning this for me is definitely our Gita study group. And in between our weekly discussions, I definitely go back to Guntax. We've had several conversations frequently. Whenever I go back to the first bullet on the top there, whenever I have a why, I just pick up the phone and call, and we've had very good discussions. And I have to say, several others on with us today here. I've had discussions with several of my friends, um, Alpana, and so many others. And it keeps coming back to, look at, observe things without getting biased, and then meditate and reflect upon them before you respond to your experiences. Okay, so that is kind of the source of the passion. And the last one here is I want to just summarize by showing you where I am today. Um, and I'll try to explain this kind of graph that I copied out of somewhere else. Um, I have realized that if I learned the Bhagavad Gita and tried to truly understand what is in it, and I have listened to a few Upanishads, started with the Mundaka Upanishad, all of them Swamiji's lectures. And he says, you can see, I left the bottom quotation from Swamiji himself. We become worthy when we have something money cannot buy. So with that in mind, the first point that I realized was there is a certain fearlessness that I personally have experienced. If we continue to observe what is happening around us, we realize that we are all feeling and having the same questions. So that's why I show where I was. I was here. There was a lot of science, and we are all engineers, scientists, or in some form or fashion, we have a logical way of thinking, analytical way of thinking. But I also felt a bit crazy because I still had those questions, why am I doing what I am doing, and so forth. But I have realized that, through our group discussions and trying to perform duties with the principle of, with the Gita's principles of Karma Yoga, that is, try not to actually, Bhagavan or Krishna says, do not do things with an expectation of the fruits of your actions. I'm going to say I'm trying to do that Karma Yoga, but I have gotten a few answers, which I will show very quickly on the next slide. Um, and of course, during meditation, how do we separate ourselves being an observer, uh, between the observer and the observed? That I find to be very difficult, but that is also, it's been a very, very enjoyable journey, and I'm looking forward to continuing that. So that's basically where I am today. It's in a very early stage of thinking and development. And where do I go from here? So before I get into that, I'm going to show you here in this graph. I am here with a smiley. I put that smiley because it was all just science, technology, and so forth. Now I have the advantage of beginning to understand some of our scriptures, starting with the Gita, of course. And what I've realized is both of them are very practical and they're very real. So if you look at these curves, now I'll try to explain these curves a little better. The value which we derive over time, uh, the thinking, if we have an incremental thinking of our own growth, then we are on a linear path. And this is, I mean, most of you or all of you have seen this before. And if we have an exponential thinking, we get on a path to exponential growth. This is also commonly used for innovation. But there is a period when this exponential growth thinking is well below the incremental thinking, right? So when I went from this incremental linear thinking, which considers only the real world or the world around us, the observed world, um, I did feel that I was on this red line. Now on the blue line, for a certain period of time, I'm going to be below the red line because I'm taking myself back to the basics and trying to understand. So it's going to be scary as hell for a while, but I'm fairly confident. I'm very confident that that after a good bit of time spent trying to bring the scriptures into my life, that this thinking and the growth will be exponential. So that's a quick summary of what that I try to visualize for myself where I'm at and where I should be going. Um, what's my plan? It's basically keep the same curiosity and passion to understand and continue my learning. And then this is our favorite Gita group acronym here. Uh, Try to optimize or minimize our 2KLM3, which I'll show right after this if you're curious about that. And of course, practice, practice, and practice. You know, the principles of Karma Yoga. That's, I think, the starting point for me for my thinking and for my spiritual development and also for the physical body. Oh, by the way, the other thing I did forget to mention is the uh, karma yoga for the body, how to take care of our physical body. I've tried to moderate my consumption of alcohol and eating different types of foods and so forth. It's been quite beneficial, I would say. In the last 8 to 10 months, I have been able to um, feel a lot more healthier, and in the process enjoy the food that I'm eating, um, enjoy the time with friends and family. But at the same time, it's also resulted in weight loss. I wasn't targeting weight loss as a particular goal, but just following some of these basic directions have resulted in that. And obviously they've created some positive change in the way I am going about things. Okay, so 2KLM3. So going back to the initial curiosity, always the question for us is, what is the path to happy? And I think all of us know all of these different things that we ought to minimize here. 2KLM3 is basically Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, and Matsarya. And you can see the English translations here. Some of those English translations are not fully accurate because uh, just saying desire is not enough for Kama, as we know, and similarly for the others. But I would like to proactively minimize these things for myself. And I laid it out as an optimization problem, subject to, of course, we all want to have a good quality of life, have really good relationships, remove fear and anxiety. And I put discipline in caps because that is the one that I think I really need to work on. There are gunas, the sattvic, rajas, and tamas gunas, and trying to minimize the tamas guna, which I want to go after, and learn good fundas and develop the resolve as I move forward to minimize this, to minimize 2KLM3. So hopefully, if you all walk away with one thing from what I've been talking about, just remember minimize 2KLM3 and try to remember what the 2KLM3 is. I put Radhakrishnan's quote here because that was another key learning for me out of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so just to summarize overall, I'm going to continue, be very curious to learn and truly understand what the scriptures mean, continue on my meditation journey. Like I said, develop the discipline to meditate every day, which I've been fairly regular, but one of my things is to, like Guntax told me several months ago, just do a sankalpam, just take a resolve, and it's like what Nike says, just do it. What is stopping us from spending 30 minutes a day? And passionately, follow the observation, meditation, and reflection, and of course, try to understand it better. And I bring in sravanam and mananam here, and one of the things we've always been discussing is, if we listen, how are we understanding it and thinking about it? One of the ways that I have found for myself is, if I try to explain it to others, and especially through writing, and I like to write, then I develop my understanding really well. So I have been trying to do that. There's a group of lectures. There's about, a whole bunch of lectures that Swamy ji has given. And so I listen to those lectures, and I try to translate his lectures in my own words in English. They're all in Tamil. I've been trying to do that with some of you guiding me, especially Guntax and Alpana. You also gave me some feedback. So I'm going to continue to do that, and I will and I'm trying to make it accessible to younger and younger people. So we'll definitely discuss this more, but that is the way I'm going to go about bettering my understanding. And that is all I had to share with you all today. Hopefully, you've seen how I've traveled this journey in the last year or so. And I'm really looking forward to this year and several years beyond. Okay, and I'll just finish off with a quick prayer. And this is the prayer that we said in the beginning again. Okay. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Gunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you so much, Gunst. Appreciate it. It is a great presentation, and I know that there's a lot of things that we have learned in this thing. But I had a very curious question for you.